We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
The defendant is charged with human trafficking, which is restricting a person's freedom with the intent to force them to work for you. An experienced cook costs over $3,000 a month, but the defendant talked Lynn Stark into working for him for only $400 a month. On the first day on the job, the defendant took Miss Stark's passport so she couldn't work her until she was nearly exhausted. Lynn worked 90 hours a week after week after week, for months, because as the defendant said, the kitchen never closes. Lynn, on the verge of a breakdown in March, approached the defendant and pleaded for her passport back so she could travel back home to Tantera to see her dying sister one last time. But the defendant refused and said she couldn't leave under any circumstances. Their restaurant consultant, Julian Blake, approached the defendant and told him about his concern for the abuse towards Lynn Stark. And the defendant revealed his true intent when he said, "Lynn is my property, and mind your own business." Fortunately, Julian Blake went to the police. But when Officer West came to investigate the crime, the defendant told Lynn Stark not to cooperate. So in desperation, Lynn smuggled a note to the officer, which she stuck to the bottom of a plate. That note read, "Please help me. I am treated like a slave." The evidence and the prosecution will prove to you that the defendant is a predator who took Miss Stark's passport and treated her like a prisoner just because he was too cheap to hire a professional chef. At the end of this case, we are certain that you will conclude that what the defendant did is a crime. Thank you, Your Honor.
You live in the apartment voluntarily?
No, Cameron forced me to live in it. It smelled bad. I could hardly use the bathroom. I had to wash my clothes in a sink.
Objection, Your Honor. That question was outside the scope of the cross-examination.
And the door locked whenever I closed it. He treated me like his own property. He treated me like a slave.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Station.
I am a police officer with the Santabella Police Department.
And do you know Lynn Stark?
Yes, sir. She's the cook at Taste of Tantera.
Were you investigating a case involving Lynn Stark and the defendant?
Yes, sir, I
Did you
was.
see the defendant interact with Mrs. Stark on March 7th, 2016?
Yes, sir. The defendant got within inches of Miss Stark's face and yelled at her, "What's wrong with you? Work faster."
Did you say anything to the defendant after seeing this?
Yes, sir. I told the defendant that I thought he was being abusive to his
What
cook.
did the defendant say after you made this comment about the abuse?
The defendant said, "You need to understand something."
Hearsay. Counsel.
This is an admission by a party or opponent.
The defendant said, "You need to understand something. Everything under that roof belongs to me."
Did you observe in you got there?
I observed that Miss Stark looked extremely haggard.
Did you have a chance to interview Mrs. Stark?
No, sir. Before I was able to approach Miss Stark, the defendant ordered her back into the kitchen.
Showing you Exhibit B, what is that?
That's the note that Miss Stark passed to me in my food.
And what exactly did the note say?
The note said, "Please help me. I'm treated like a
I
slave."
am a social worker that works with government agencies to help identify cases of human trafficking. I have worked for 20 years in the field of human trafficking.
What is human trafficking?
Human trafficking is a modern-day form of slavery where employers will use force, deception, and duress to have victims work against their will.
How are victims of human trafficking often controlled by their employers?
Well, employers will do a lot of things. They will often have them work extremely long hours for little to even no pay, and if they don't work harder or faster, employers will often threaten to deport them and withhold their wages.
Is there anything else that employers do to control their victims?
Yes. Employers will also limit outside contact, make them live on the site of the workplace in very poor conditions, and they will also psychologically manipulate them.
What were Mrs. Stark's hours like while working for the defendant?
Ms. Stark was working 90 hours a week.
And what were her wages like working for the defendant?
She was only receiving $2.29 per hour.
Were Mrs. Stark's living conditions consistent with being a victim of human trafficking?
Yes. If you look to Exhibit A, at the bottom there is an apartment. She had to live in that small apartment that had bars over the windows and a door that trapped her in. It was basically like a prison cell.
No further questions.
As a restaurant consultant, how did you feel about the defendant running a restaurant?
Well, based on a conversation we had, I didn't feel like the defendant had the necessary expenses to pay for the necessary staff.
Do you know Lynn Stark?
I do. Lynn Stark is a cook that the defendant hired.
Were you involved in the decision to hire Lynn Stark?
No, which is weird because the defendant said that he was looking for a particular kind of person to hire.
Were there any concerns about the property?
Yes.
Yes.
Right here, as you go up to Lynn's apartment, there is a double bolt cylinder lock that locks on the inside and out.
Why was this a concern?
Basically, if somebody's in that apartment and the door closes without a key, she's trapped.
Did you ever mention this to the defendant?
Yes, I talked to the defendant about getting it removed.
What was his reaction?
He said no. I want to
minute.
keep it just in case I want to lock something away.
How did the defendant treat Lynn Stark after the restaurant opened?
The defendant constantly yelled at Lynn and even threatened to deport her if she didn't work faster.
You are aware that the law requires someone to get paid a minimum wage of $9 per hour and overtime if they work over 40 hours, right?
Yes.
You have seen in other cases where traffickers pay their victims around $1 per hour, right?
Yes.
Let me ask you a hypothetical question. If a person was working 90 hours a week and there are 4 weeks per month, that would mean they'd be working around 360 hours a month, right? If that person was paid $1 for those 360 hours, they would have only earned $360 each month, right?
Correct.
And Lynn Stark was paid around $400 a month, right?
Correct.
So she was being paid a little over $1, right?
A little over, which is higher than most traffickers pay their victims.
But it still is around $1,
1 minute.
right?
Yes.
Thank you. No further
As part
questions.
of your investigation, you did not spend more than a few minutes searching all
1
these
minute.
residences, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
30 seconds.
Yes, sir.
You do not know what happened in the restaurant.
Stop!
The defendant claims that he never said anything that could possibly suggest he intended to treat Lynn Stark like his property. Let's run the tape, shall we? You are abusing your cook. Everything under that roof is mine. This isn't normal. If you want to run a restaurant, you need to spend more money on staff. My employees are my property. My sister is dying. Please give me a few days off so I can go see her. You can hire another
30
cook.
seconds.
Please give me my passport and visa so I can go home. You are not allowed to leave under any circumstances. It's going to be a while before you go anywhere. I think his words say it all. Your Honor, it is now time that he hears there are consequences for his words and actions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Superior Court of the State of California, County of Los Angeles, Department 87 is now in session. Judge Siegel presiding. Please be seated and come to order. Please turn off all cell phones and refrain from talking.
Your Honor and scoring attorneys, my name is Quentin Price and I represent Cameron Aubrey. Mr. Aubrey, as a teenager, regularly traveled to Tantera on humanitarian missions. He loved the people of Tantera, and when he inherited some money, he decided to open a restaurant. Mr. Aubrey had never opened a restaurant before and was in need of a cook, and Lynn Stark had just lost her last job at a hotel and was desperate to stay in the country. Although Lynn cooked delicious, authentic food, she had no prior restaurant experience and desperately wanted the job. Mr. Aubrey made the rookie mistake and hired Lynn. He explained that it'd be rough initially, but he offered the following very valuable benefits: a monthly salary rather than an hourly wage, free food, a free apartment, free long-distance phone calls to her family, and Mr. Aubrey's personal help to alter and change her work visa so that she could bring her family to the U.S. Starks immediately accepted the job offer, but since she had no expenses and nothing that she needed to pay, ended up wiring her money back to her family in Tantera each month. But once the restaurant opened, Stark's inexperience immediately showed. Lynn just couldn't keep up with the work, no matter how much Mr. Aubrey pleaded with her. He gave her multiple chances, and he could have just fired her, but he wanted to give her a chance. Stark just couldn't or wouldn't do the job correctly. Stark had already lost her last job at the hotel, and couldn't afford to lose this job. No job, no visa. So Stark decided it was easier to falsely accuse Mr. Aubrey of human trafficking than to do her job correctly. Thank you, Your Honor.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform with the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
You may be seated. Please state your name and spell your last.
Addison Frey, F-R-E-Y.
Go ahead. Have you interviewed anyone in connection with this case?
As a psychologist, I thought it was necessary to interview Lynn Stark, so I interviewed her after Cameron Aubrey's arrest.
And why did you interview Lynn Stark?
To see if she showed the signs of being a human trafficking victim.
And do you have an opinion on whether Lynn Stark is a victim of human trafficking?
Yes.
What is that opinion?
Lynn Stark is not a victim of human trafficking.
What about Lynn's background suggests that she is not a victim of human trafficking?
Well, Lynn had worked as a housekeeper in a hotel, and when she was let go from that job, she was desperate to find another. So even though she had no experience, she accepted her job at the restaurant.
And what is it about her symptoms that suggests that she is not a human trafficking victim?
Well, although Lynn was educated, she didn't have any experience in the restaurant business, so she couldn't handle the workload.
What is significant about her living conditions that supports your opinion?
Lynn lived in her own private apartment that she could decorate and clean as she pleased.
And how did this apartment impact your conclusion?
In all of my experience, I have never seen a human trafficking victim who lived in their own private apartment.
What is your educational background?
I went to Santa Bella College and graduated with a bachelor's degree in hotel management.
And what type of work do you perform?
I manage a boutique hotel.
Are you familiar with Lynn Stark?
Yes, Lynn Stark is the cook that Cameron Aubrey hired for his restaurant.
Are you familiar with Cameron Aubrey?
Yes, Cameron is my cousin.
With your education and work experience, were you concerned with Lynn beginning work?
Well, yes, because many good cooks struggle to keep up with the workload of a restaurant, and Lynn has never even worked in a restaurant before, so she was definitely going to struggle.
After the restaurant opened, how was Lynn performing on the job?
Lynn was working very
Has
slow.
Cameron ever come to you to speak about Lynn?
He's came to me a few times to speak about Lynn's work visa, and work visas are very complicated.
What'd you tell him?
I told him to hire an immigration attorney.
What type of person is Cameron?
Cameron is the hardest working person I know, and he would never ever intentionally hurt an employee, especially one from a country that he loves.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Do you know Cameron Aubrey?
Yes, Cameron hired me to work at his restaurant, The Taste of Tantera.
And do you know Lynn Stark?
Yes, Lynn and I became very good friends, and we worked at Cameron's restaurant.
Were you able to see how Cameron treated Lynn Stark?
Cameron treated Lynn like a family member.
Why do you say that?
Well, Lynn had her own apartment above the restaurant, which she lived in rent-free, and she was allowed to have as much food as she wanted per shift, and Cameron was always like helping her out and making sure she was okay.
Were you able to observe how Lynn was working out at the restaurant?
Lynn was a really good cook, and her food was amazing, but she had trouble keeping up, especially when we got busy.
Have you ever seen Lynn's apartment?
Yeah, she took me up there once to show me pictures of the family.
And how would you describe the apartment?
It wasn't anything luxurious, but it was nice and cozy.
Did you ever see Lynn outside of the restaurant?
Yes, 2 or 3 times I went with her to the bank to wire some money down to her mom's account in Canada.
Do you remember Lynn approaching you about a week or so before Cameron was arrested?
Yes.
What happened on that day?
Well, Lynn was in tears, and she said she was afraid Cameron was going to fire her and she was going to lose her visa and be deported.
Did Lynn say anything else?
Yeah, she said she was desperate and would do anything to keep her job.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Did you have a business?
I did. I owned a restaurant called A Taste of Tantan.
Do you know Lynn Stark?
Yes, I do. I hired her as my chef.
Why did you hire Lynn as your chef?
Although she had no professional experience, her food was pretty good.
Where did Lynn live?
In an apartment above the restaurant for free.
Did Lynn have a key to this apartment?
Yes, it was on the red lanyard. The key.
And how was the first month working together?
Everything went really smoothly until the restaurant had opened.
And what happened when the restaurant opened?
Lynn was working really, really slowly.
So what did you do?
I had to constantly remind her to keep working faster.
What happened on March 7th, 2016?
On March 7th, Lynn was having an especially slow day. She had just stopped working.
So what did you do?
I went in the kitchen to see that she had stopped working.
Then what happened?
So I had to tell her that now was no time to give up, and that people were still out there waiting for her food, and she just had to keep going.
What happened 2 days later?
2 days later, Lynn approached me about taking a vacation.
Did Lynn tell you why she wanted to take this vacation?
No, she just said she wanted to take a vacation.
So how did you respond?
Well, I said she couldn't take a vacation. 1, because I had no money to, and 2, because she didn't give me a reason.
How did Lynn react when you denied her vacation request?
She was outraged. She started yelling at me and then just ran up the stairwell to her room.
And how did you react?
Out of frustration, I slammed the door.
What happened the next morning?
The next morning, I saw that Lynn wasn't at work.
So what did you do?
I went to go check if everything was okay to see that she was banging on the door, and I opened it and I asked her if she was missing her key.
Then what did Lynn do?
She just started yelling at me and then stormed away.
Did you ever threaten to have Lynn deported?
Not at all. I would never threaten to deport someone.
Did you ever restrict Lynn's access to the outside world?
No, I did not.
Earlier, you said that Lynn was salaried, not paid per the hour. Why is this important?
I took a huge risk hiring Lynn because she had no professional experience. And the reason why she worked so many hours was because she was working super, super slowly.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions. Lynn Stark was concerned that if she lost this job, she would be unemployed without any work prospects, correct?
Correct.
She would then have to return to Tantera.
Yes.
She would also lose the only chance to bring her family to the U.S., right?
Correct.
Stark told you that she was desperate not to let this happen.
That's correct.
Stark did tell you that she lost her last job as a housekeeper in a hotel, right?
Yes, she was laid off.
She also told you that she was afraid of losing this job at the restaurant, right?
Yes.
Did you even consider whether Lynn's stress came from never having worked as a chef in a busy environment before?
No, I did not.
Traffickers generally target people with lower education, yet Stark spoke English and was college educated, right?
Yes, she dropped out of college though.
You admit that it is unusual for trafficking victims to have their own apartment free of charge?
Yes, but all trafficking victims are different.
Are trafficking victims generally granted all the food they want for free?
No.
Or allowed to make free international calls to their families?
No.
If Lynn Stark really was a human trafficking victim, can you tell me why she never told any of her coworkers?
I cannot.
Or why she never told anyone when she was walking around with her coworkers after work?
I cannot.
Or why she never went to the police before March 10th?
I cannot. In deciding whether Mr. Aubrey actually had the specific intent to obtain forced labor, the key is the key. Lynn's key on the red lanyard. And here are 6 facts to prove that Mr. Aubrey could never have taken it. Lynn Stark was given the key on the red lanyard when he moved in. Lynn was the last person to ever use the key. No one ever saw Mr. Aubrey with the key. Mr. Aubrey didn't even know what was missing when he and Lynn argued. And the first thing he asked Lynn when he opened the door was if he was missing his key. Despite a thorough search by Officer West, the key was never found. And it would make no sense that he even took the key, because he would have had to taken it hours before he even knew they'd have an argument. Your Honor, Mr. Aubrey was a security guard at his last job, not a fortune teller. He never had the key. He never had the criminal intent. And Mr. Aubrey has never been a human trafficker. Thank you. Stop.
that you can't get.